Hi, this is my review of Hostile Tactical AI. This is an artificial intelligence engine in the form of a deck of cards designed by Josh Malbon. This AI will allow you to transform any wargame that you have, any tabletop wargame, into a solo or cooperative experience. But I also used it with a few board games and some role-playing games. So I think you will find that this product is quite flexible in its application. Now let's talk about the quality. You can get this either as a PDF or as a physical deck of cards. I'm going to put the link in the description below so you can check that out. And the quality of cards used in any of these stores of one bookshelves such as Wargame Vault, RPG Now, etc. It's actually quite good. So if you want to get this product as a physical deck of cards, I recommend it. And I will be reviewing the PDF version. You get 4 files when you purchase the PDF. You have a sheet of the card backs with a simple design and very much in theme with wargaming. And you also have the front of the cards. The design is quite simple and nice to look at. I really like the aesthetic feel to it. That it feels universal. It doesn't feel like, oh, this is a deck that should be used only with World War II type of games or fantasy battle games. It fits any theme in my opinion. And you also have a sheet of shards. Now these shards are basically markers to designate different objectives during battle, because some cards will indicate that you should attack this enemy or move closer to that objective, and you use these shards to mark those objectives. And you also have a sheet of rules. I really like the design of the rules. It's quite simple, but it has this like barbed wire texture to it and embellishments in different parts. And everything is very well written and explained. You will understand how to use this AI system in less than 5 minutes probably. So overall the quality is excellent. Now let's talk about how you use this AI system. When an enemy unit activates, you draw a card. And you have to ask yourself, is this enemy aware of my army or my unit or not? It depends on the situation. And if that enemy is aware, you have to carry out attack orders. But if the enemy is not aware of your presence, maybe it's sort of like a stealth type of mission, then you have to carry out patrol orders for that enemy. There are also react orders, and these usually come in addition to other orders. Some cards have an asterisk and it indicates that you need to draw a react order. So it usually works in tandem or simultaneously with some other orders, although there are times where you're only playing a reaction. So let's take a look at one of the cards, a bit of a closer look. You have an indication of a reaction in the upper left corner, and then you see the objective on the upper right. This is a way to indicate what, for example, what target is going to be attacked or moved towards to. And then you have the indication of patrol orders. In this case, it's a sweep order. But if that enemy is aware of you, it's going to be a hostile attack order. And at the bottom of the card, you can see that there's even a compass indication, a compass direction. And next to it, there is a black box indicating, for example, which player is going to be attacked by that particular enemy unit. And you also have a couple of 6-sided dice. And so this is part of the great usefulness and flexibility of this system of cards. As you draw orders, you keep drawing cards to know where a particular action is going to be taken, because for example, maybe your enemy is patrolling and is going to pace towards or away from a certain objective. So you draw another card and you get the compass direction and more indications as to which objective. But maybe the enemy moves performs a sweep. The dice, the couple of dice, are going to indicate how many inches or centimeters, depends on the type of wargame system that you're using, that unit is going to move. And then you have, in the case of attack orders, maybe the enemy is going to try to flank your unit, or maybe it's going to retreat, or it's going to go all out, completely hostile towards you. This system works particularly well with modern wargames, or those that have a lot of ranged attacks, but it also works with any other system. As I was telling you, you just need to apply a bit of common sense to the type of orders that are going to be carried out. Now let's talk a bit about the react orders. Maybe the enemy is going to call for help, or maybe the enemy is going to charge into melee, or maybe the enemy is going to rally and it's going to help perhaps a fallen comrade perform some type of healing maneuvers as well. And it all depends on the game, the system that you are using. And you really need to apply some logic and common sense, as I was telling you, to designate different objectives according to what is indicated by the patrol orders, the attack orders, the react orders. Now I'm going to talk about my experience using this tactical AI. First, I played a game of Battletech. It's one of the tracks in the Sword and Dragon campaign book. I chose that particular track because it's a sort of like a stealth mission where you need to scan different battle mechs. It's like a recon type of mission, and it was really cool to see how different battle mechs, enemy battle mechs, sometimes were not aware of my presence, and they actually moved around and started scanning different enemy units. But once they became aware, it really felt there was a lot of tension, because you couldn't predict exactly what the enemy was going to do against you. And that's a good advantage if you're looking for more of a random and unpredictable experience, because for example, when you are playing a competitive war game, sometimes you kinda read what your opponent is going to do based on perhaps small gestures or previous maneuvers, but with hostile you can never predict it. It's all so random, so it gets really exciting, and you need to let's say translate or apply some of the values of these cards according to the system, because in Battletech you don't move inches. Well, there is a way to play Battletech more as a wargame type of gridless type of wargame, but it's common to play it on a hex grid. So sometimes, depending on the battle mech, if the battle mech had a lot of walking and running points, and I got, let's say, an 8 on the 2 6-sided dice, I decided that it was going to try to move those that number of hexes. But there were other times where for example, the battle mech was either too slow or had been damaged and could barely move like 1 or 2 hexes, and I actually interpreted the number obtained in the dice as the number of walking or running points that it was going to use. So it's really fun to draw cards and see this random direction in which they are going to move. And it's also quite interesting to see how the objective and the indication with the black box tells you which unit is going to be attacked by that enemy mech in this case. So it worked really well with Battletech, and I decided to play it with Age of Sigmar and with one of the first scenarios of Bladestorm 2nd edition, and so it also works great with a fantasy game, because in both of those games there are ranged attacks, so it's quite easy to apply sometimes a ranged attack or a melee attack. And when it comes to reactions, there are moments where the enemy is going to use secondary weapons. So for example, you're playing a game where the enemy unit is using a machine gun constantly, maybe you get the reaction that it's going to use a secondary weapon, and now it's attacking you with grenades. So there is a lot of unexpected variation or variability as you are playing. That's really cool. And then I decided to try out this system with some board games. I tried out with the Claustrophobia and Descent Second Edition, and it worked really well. It also helped me to solve some dilemmas while I was playing, because in both of those games, one player uses cards, and you cannot, when you play competitively, you cannot tell what card is going to be used against you. But because when you're playing solo, you already know what cards are on the enemy's hand. But with these cards, with these reaction cards, I can kind of like figured out how some cards were going to be used. Because, for example, in Claustrophobia, there were 3 cards in the opposing player's hand, and one of those cards had to do with attacking a certain a miniature, and the other card, it was to make a wound worse than it was that it would normally be. So I drew a card, and it indicated to attack the the weakest enemy. So one of I think it was the Redeemer, was quite wounded, so one of the cards was used against him. So you can use these hostile tactical AI cards in different ways. You just need to apply some common sense and logic, and they will solve many disputes and questions as to how you apply negative effects or offensive maneuvers against yourself. That way things are kept fair. So, as I was telling you, it worked really well with board games. And then I tried out with a couple of RPGs. First, I tried out with the Hackmaster, and the encounter went quite well, quite smooth. I think it's going to be especially useful in situations where, for example, you are moving a rogue or an assassin or a thief in Hackmaster, sticking to the shadows, trying to keep hiding as you move along. And so here you can determine if the enemy is aware, that is, if the enemy kind of suspects that your character is moving in a certain area. There is a patrol order named Suspicion, so it determines the number of inches that moves towards you. And I also tried out with the Mutant Chronicles, because I'm currently running the Dark Symmetry campaign, and my players will come into a moment where stealth plays a very important part. So that allowed me to, let's say, carry out some fine-tuning before I run that encounter, by playing a few of the characters and drawing cards to see what types of patrol orders and attack orders the enemies were going to take against the characters. So overall the system works, and it works surprisingly well. Let me tell you what I think overall of hostile tactical AI. This is probably one of the best things that you can get in your entire gaming career. When you purchase hostile tactical AI, you're going to add an entire dimension or more depth to all of your tabletop war games, war-themed board games, and your role-playing games as well. Because now you can play all of those solo or cooperatively. And this is quite useful, because sometimes you're trying to teach someone how to play a war game, for example, or a competitive board game, and you either have to crush the opponent, or you have to play it like with a handicap. And that's not really fun, because you have an advantage because you're more experienced with the system. But with hostile tactical AI, you can play together with your friend, and you can teach the game, and then your friend is going to become familiar with the system, and you will have a stronger opponent next time. I also think that hostile, as I was telling you, it works really well with board games, but it also, if you play role-playing games, you're going to be able to test those encounters before you present them to your players. And if you have a particular RPG that you have no players at the moment, because there are role-playing games that the theme is too specific and sometimes you can't get anyone to the table to play that game with you, you could play it solo, perhaps in addition with using the Mythic Game Master Emulator. You can combine Mythic with Hostile and you will have, wow, so many options on how to play that RPG in a solitaire type of way. So there's really no excuse to not to get Hostile. In fact, you could even get Hostile even if you play competitively and you don't want to play solo or co-op. You could play, for example, like a third party or some part of a neutral force in the battlefield that could attack any of the participants in the battle, and that could add a bit of a more, I guess you could say, randomness or even a tactical consideration during combat. Maybe you want to lure that AI towards your opponent and try to carry out some sort of pincer maneuvers. And I also think that Hostile can enrich or enhance those wargames that already have some sort of solo engine. Because, for example, you have Xeno Force, or games in the 2-hour wargame line, such as Warrior Heroes, that already have like a solo engine. You could use Hostile to add more choices, more depth to those systems of solo and co-op gaming. So my highest recommendation for Hostile Tactical AI, if you are a gamer and you are remotely interested in playing a game solo or co-op, or even play a game competitively against someone, and you want to add some element of randomness by introducing other units that are controlled by this AI, you definitely need to get Hostile Tactical AI. Josh Malvan did an excellent job at designing this surprising engine. Well, thanks for watching my review. If you have any comments or questions, please let me know. See you later.